Yo, what's up? Akira here. So yeah, I hate to say it. After 7+ years of the Switch life cycle, I was expecting Nintendo to be constantly throwing banger after banger after banger. I mean, yeah, we got some great games such as Breath of the Wild and Breath of the Wild DLC, which is Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, we also got Mario Odyssey, which might mean it's all right. It was no Galaxy or Galaxy 2 even. We also got 2 Pokemon games for the first time over on console, which were a main line of the series, and both equally ran like complete dog shit.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
And don't get me wrong, we got several other first-party Nintendo games that were pretty good, but it wasn't really IP or genre defying. But you wanna know what we did got?
What?
I mean, what we did get is Farm Sims.
Oh, brother.
The era of the Switch is now known as the Farm Swim. What? The Farm Sim era, baby. I mean, we got Rune Factory 4 Special. We got another port of Stardew Valley. We got Sakuna of the Rice and Ruin. Don't forget about that Story of Seasons, all 8 of them. And if you're a millennial Disney adult, guess what? Boom, we got Disney Dreamlight, Starlight, Stardew Valley, whatever the frick this game is. Not to mention the COVID killer itself, Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Yeah, boy.
I get it. The Switch is probably the perfect handheld to play these type of games where you're just sitting there wasting your life away. You can waste your life away in front of the TV, on the couch, in your bed, in your depression. And there are really good farm sim games. As I mentioned, Animal Crossing is a good one. It's a staple. It's an IP brand. But you can almost guarantee that no matter what Nintendo Direct is, they're going to at least announce 3 of these new games for the Nintendo Switch. But on top of that, the Nintendo Switch also had some games that were ported over from PC that came out like almost 7 years ago. Like, hey, do you want to play Celeste for the 80th time? Guess what? You can now play it on your Switch. And also, guess what? You know how Steam is notorious for having constant Steam sales where the games are like $3? Fuck that noise. You're paying full fucking price for a 7-year-old game. That is the Nintendo guarantee. And don't worry, Nintendo doesn't discriminate. They're like, hey, do you like playing full price for these old 7-year-old Steam games? Guess what? You're gonna love paying $60+ for our old Nintendo games that came out 20 years ago. Remember the Mario Galaxy collection?
Nope.
$60. And if you're one of those poor Canadian viewers, $70 to almost $80, here you go. Fuck it. I mean, you could just boot up one of them old aquatic sea animals emulators. What is it called? What is it called again? For legal purposes, I am not allowed to say what the name that emulator is, but I'm just saying you can get it to run at a better frame rate and consistently make it look a lot better on a certain emulator. I'm just saying. So like, yeah, the Switch era was trying so hard to bank on the concept of gaming anywhere. It stopped really being the third option competitor to consoles like Sony or Xbox, but with a reasonable price point. For example, the GameCube. I felt like the GameCube was the perfect competitor within the PlayStation and Xbox console wars. Not only was it $100 cheaper than its competitors, it also ran the games of the current gen pretty much fine. Sure, you might get a little bit more graphical fidelity on an Xbox or a PlayStation, but at the time, due to the constraints of technology just in general, most games overall pretty much ran and felt the same on each of the 3 consoles at the time and didn't really see a huge graphical boost. Meanwhile today, play Hogwarts Legacy on your Switch.
What the hell? Oh my God, no way, yeah.
Go on, do it, I dare you. And I am not held liable if your Switch blows up because of it. But unfortunately with the Nintendo Switch, it had to sort of come in the cycle relatively late, but also very stilted as a product, because you see, in order to make a hybrid console like the Nintendo Switch, there had to be some sort of cuts that need to be made, and that was graphics. And I'm pretty sure Nintendo thought this was a safe bet because most of their first party games are made by Wizards apparently. I mean, like, how could they make like a 30-hour plus game open world and only be like 2 gigabytes. What the fuck kind of witchcraft and wizardry are they doing at Nintendo Studios? And clearly they're not giving Game Freak any of the secret sauce because, again, look at Scarlet and Violet. I mean, don't look at it. It's atrocious. Look away. Look away now. But you get what I'm saying. Nintendo has always been known, especially for their first parties, to be kind of like, I don't want to say kiddie, but not really too graphically intensive. So they kind of bit the bullet and said like, hey, we're going to solely rely on 2 things. Our first party game, which have more of a stylized approach and not really too graphically intensive, and capturing a lot of indie games, a lot of like handheld indie darlings, and some older Steam games that you can play on the go. They solely focused on the gimmick of taking your console on the go, and they rode that all the way to success. Don't get me wrong, Nintendo pulled fucking numbers with the Switch. Highest selling console of all time. But unfortunately, much like the gimmick that was the Wii U, which was interactiveness, motion, it kind of plays itself out, especially when other companies are coming up with slightly more competent products. Unlike when people were trying to get the motion gimmick back in the day with the Kinect. To compare with the Wii sales and numbers, and utterly failed. Converting your console into a handheld is not necessarily a task that is really difficult to do. Expensive, yes, but not really that difficult to do. And if Nintendo wanted to make a completely dumb mistake, they would have made the Switch 10 times more powerful and sold the console that was $600 per unit and completely alienate the casual gaming market. I'm not saying they should do that, but there are some key mistakes or trends that Nintendo has been doing in the Switch lifecycle, which has kind of turned me off of the Switch and kind of have made me a little bit worried about the Switch 2. And I'm making this video prior to the Switch 2 announcement, so hopefully none of this stuff is going to be really dated. But these are some sort of things and guidelines that Nintendo could possibly do that could possibly make the Switch 2 a lot more successful. Because as I said, the Switch 1 existed in a marketplace where there weren't really any real competitors coming out there, and PlayStation and Xbox at the time weren't really in the whole handheld portable market. But now with rumors that maybe Sony is making a new PlayStation Portable and maybe it's going to be a hybrid console, same with the Xbox, maybe they're going to dabble into it once they stop buying up companies and letting them die, who knows. And the reason why I am making this video is because overall I like Nintendo. I think Nintendo has a place in everybody's heart. If you are an OG Gen X gamer with your Mario Brothers and your So Long Gay Bowsers, that was there for you. My era, which is more the GameCube era with tons of bangers like Wind Waker and some sleeper hits like Eternal Darkness, to name a few. Nintendo has been a staple for so many people's childhoods, and not to forget Pokemon, of course, the icon that is Pokemon. So instead of being one of those YouTubers that constantly shit on Nintendo or shit on game companies saying like, oh, they suck now, they aren't how they were when I was a little baby and everything was good and I didn't have to pay bills. No, I am going to give Nintendo a few tips, tricks, suggestions on how they could possibly make the Switch 2 a little bit better. And as I said, this might be extremely dated when the Switch 2 comes out. But also this applies to while the Switch 2 is currently out, because disadvantage that Switch 2 has is the fact that it's coming out literally when a PlayStation 6 or a new Xbox is going to be announced within the next 4 to 5 years. And at this point, I highly doubt the graphical fidelity of the next Switch is going to be anywhere near a PlayStation 5 is at even right now. But I could be wrong, but for the most part, that's what I think. But anyway, here goes some things that I think the Nintendo can possibly do in order to improve the Nintendo Switch 2, hopefully. And hopefully these ideas are pretty good. But I also want to know, what are your ideas about the Switch 2 or your thoughts of overall on the Switch? Let me know in the comment section down below. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. So higher graphical options are a must. Now, I get it. One of the things that kind of made me put my Switch aside and sort of let it gather and collect dust over in the corner is the Steam Deck. Now, calm down, Nintendo fanboy. I know a more casual market isn't really going to be open to a more luxury item that is the Steam Deck. I know that at the beginning, Steam Decks were like around $600 to $700 just for like a 100 gig model. But hear me out for just a second. There has to be a way for Switch to play to both audience. For the casual people that just want to simply just play games on the go, and for people that want more graphical fidelity in games to, actually run at, can we at least get them to run at 30 frames per second, Nintendo? At least 30 frames? Is that okay with you? So I proposed the idea of a standalone dock that pushes out more graphical power for docked mode, which was an option that was floating around in the ether from 2017 until now, that possibly maybe someday that there will be a dock that you can purchase separately for, let's say, in between $200 to $300 extra for those that are like gamers that need that frame rate, that need that graphical fidelity. You can go ahead and purchase that if you're a true gamer, and you can do that on your own. But if you're just happy playing in your 12 frames per second in Breath of the Wild, you're happy to go ahead and do that if you want to.
Who's this man?
Again, not shitting on those who prefer that method. I know you guys are just trying to have a casual experience. I'm just using y'all as an example. I'm sorry. It's okay. But having a secondary option for people that want this is very beneficial. It's not only beneficial for the company to sell more product, but it's also beneficial for those other gamers that are looking to get into it that necessarily aren't the casual demographic and people that are actually really into games and want to get the best quality from video games. And it's funny because guess what? These games actually run really good. I'm not saying do it, but there are certain fruit-based, citrus-based emulators out there that provide you an opportunity to see what a game that will look like with 4K resolution and running at 60 frames per second unlocked. But imagine if there was like an official Nintendo supported way to do that and not an experimental, clearly illegal way to run these games. And also another solution to the Nintendo Switch problem would be to make different games.
What do you mean by that?
Now, what I mean by this is, back in the day, the multi-platform queue of video games always existed. There would be games for the Xbox, there'll be games for the GameCube, there will be games for the PlayStation 2, and oh, look here, there's games for the Game Boy Advance, the PSP. And when you look at games for the Game Boy Advance and the PSP, you notice that they are quite different from the larger console versions. They're not only designed around mobility, but they're also designed around the graphical capability of the console itself. For example, most of the time it would be more like a platformer or an RPG in a pixel design if it was for the Game Boy Advance, or if it was for the PlayStation Portable, it was more of a scaled down kind of a shorter experience. Instead of clocking around like 10 to 18 hours, it would be like around 5 hours of gameplay, more condensed levels. The graphic quality wasn't as intense as a PlayStation 3. And that's because these console manufacturers or the publishers themselves would incentivize other publishers and developers to sort of make other type of games. Like you got your mainline game, and then you have, the side little DS game, the side little PlayStation Portable game, the side Game Boy Advance game. And granted, not all these games were extremely great. A lot of them were kind of shovelware-ish, especially some ones for the DS. Very trimmed down basic controls, but at the same time, it was still a game that was playable on a more mobile device. And for the most part, people that only played these type of games pretty much loved them. I mean, if you're a kid with only a Game Boy Advance SP, there is no difference between both versions of Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories. So what I'm saying is, for example, let's just say Hogwarts Legacy. It's a game that is very graphically intense, and probably a bad example because Warner Brother Gaming Studio is pretty much on fire right now. Well, hell, Warner Brothers in general, so they probably won't be making any new or innovative games anytime soon. But still, let's just take Hogwarts Legacy for example. It came out on the PlayStation, it came out on the Xbox, and they even tested their luck with pushing it out on the PS4. It looks like dog shit, but it's still kind of playable. Then they pushed it to the Switch. Yeah, nah, that ain't it. But instead of like straight up porting the game over to the Switch, because developers just love lazily porting stuff nowadays, how about make a brand new experience specifically for the Switch? And as I said, this is going to take a lot of time and money, but could also sell units, because at the end of the day, when you have a multi-platform game and you want people to buy it as many SKUs as possible, they make it essentially so the Switch version is obsolete. I mean, when it's on the PlayStation 5, the Xbox, or the PC, why would I choose to get it on the Switch, especially like 3 years after it came out? Sure, if I have no choice and I only have a Switch, maybe I will try to play it, but at the same time, if I'm having a frustrating time playing a very ugly looking version of the game, that kind of sucks. But if you tailor experience solely specifically for the Nintendo Switch and make an exclusive Nintendo Switch version of Hogwarts Legacy that is maybe, let's just say, more stylized, or hey, maybe like a pixel art version of it, it would also make people more willing to buy the Switch version, and hell, maybe they'll even buy both versions, one for the PC and one for the Switch, because they're two totally different versions. But I get it, it costs money to make separate SKUs of a video game when it's just easier to drag and drop PC files over onto the PlayStation, over onto the Switch, and just call it a day. Also, one thing that would be kind of interesting would be just for them to make more games in general. Like, it's strange. It's like been over 7 years since the Switch has been out, and we've only got like a handful of first-party Nintendo games. And a handful of first-party Nintendo games that was like actually memorable and good. I remember the GameCube era having like meaty, substantial, IP-defining video games coming out around this time. Sure, people really hated Wind Waker at the time because of its graphical change from being like a more dark and brooding Ocarina of Time version over to its cartoon, cutesy Toon Link version. But overall, it is a memorable Zelda game and considered as most people's favorite Zelda game of almost all time. And not to mention that they also released Twilight Princess on the same console. Not to mention also other classics like Super Smash Bros. Melee, considered one of the best Smash Bros. Luigi's Mansion, which started on the GameCube. As I mentioned before, Eternal Darkness, which was a third-party game, later become a cult classic. You had the Metroid Prime series completely existing on the GameCube itself. And with that, like a plethora of third-party games from other developers. But like now, like I can name on like one hand good first-party Nintendo games. I mean, we got Zelda Breath of the Wild, I guess Tears of the Kingdom. But even amongst Breath of the Wild fans, people would agree Tears of the Kingdom is just more Breath of the Wild, nothing really new there. You got the Pokemon games, but as I said, they have been kind of misses. I mean, Legends Arceus was pretty good. I guess you got Legends Arceus. But overall, it's been kind of lackluster when it comes to the releases that have been coming out on the Switch. I mean, we have only really gotten one Mario 3D platformer on the Switch. One original Mario 3D platformer. For the most part, the Switch has been remaking older Nintendo games just on the Switch, and we've been lapping it up like, yes, Nintendo, please give me more of the stuff that you released 20 years ago. Yes, Nintendo, please give me more. And whenever they decide to make new stuff like, I don't know, ARMS, y'all running ARMS matches in 2025 now? Is this what we're doing?
Oh my God, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the?
And I solely believe this is because of the limitations of the Switch itself. Nintendo is kind of stuck in a box as of right now because of how far they can possibly go with making these new games on this console, and it's been holding back newer games to come out. And alongside just overall bad business practices when it comes to Nintendo, like their approach to completely clapping fan games, like Pokemon's whole lawsuit with Power World for no reason. It's just bad publicity for no reason whatsoever. They know Pokemon's fans will stand by Nintendo no matter what, so the idea of wasting litigation power on taking over Power World, which was just a weird move. Also, within the past 7 years, they're cracked down on like emulation, as well as they're cracked down on like people selling pirate games, but at the same time Nintendo selling games that came out in 2004 for $60.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Like, they just don't do right by fans.
Hang up. Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. Intel has told us there are at least 7.
Okay, I already see one. Give him. Okay.
They're the same picture.
As I said before, Nintendo kind of sucks now, and we just let it suck. Because unfortunately, and I know this is going to get a bunch of dislikes when I say this, they have a bunch of fanboys and girls completely shielding them from any sort of critical feedback or criticism when it comes to how they handle their properties, as well as how they handle the console itself. And this has been a trend for several years, even before the Switch came out. For example, there being several different versions of the Switch, none of them any more powerful than the other, but they switch it up by using weird naming gimmicks in order to trick buyers into thinking that they're actually getting something new. They've done this with the 3DS, like the 3DS and the new 3DS, which is called the 3DS, but it takes out the 3DS feature and it's more expensive somehow. Just like they did with the Nintendo Switch Lite, which is the Nintendo Switch, but minus the feature which people are buying the console for. You know, I can play it at home on the TV as well as on the go. Well, I guess I can play it on the go and at home, just not on the TV. Come on, Nintendo. Oh yeah, here goes another Nintendo Switch, but the screen is slightly better, I guess. And they change up the name and do the cool glossy new intros, and they think, oh wow, more people should buy this one. Overall, I just think people should be more critical when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2 when it comes out, and if it doesn't meet your expectations. Honestly, my expectations was for the Nintendo Switch to at least run as good as the early versions of the Steam Deck. I'm sorry. Even the Steam Deck runs at like early like PlayStation 5 life cycle or late PlayStation 4 life cycle. So even that's not pushing graphical standards by too much. But if the Nintendo Switch comes out and it's not even performing as well as these consoles at their launch cycle, then I'm sorry, I just don't see the point of a Switch 2, if I'm being quite honest. Sure, for the Nintendo IPs that are eventually going to come out in the future, and maybe they might look just a teeny bit better than the old versions. Still, me personally just don't really think is necessary to buy a Switch when they don't plan on doing anything new or different or exciting. But as I said, this is all before the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement has been made, and I'm going to try to get this up probably like around a day before this comes out, so that way you guys can sort of get what I'm talking about. And again, if you made it to this end of the video, this is not me shitting on Nintendo. This is me saying Nintendo can do better, and as a Nintendo fan, I think we should hold Nintendo accountable for their lackluster performance over the past probably 5 years since the Nintendo Switch come out. A console that started out as a strong S tier, but then slowly as time went on, graphical improvements haven't been made, new and exciting IPs haven't been shown. It overall became a B-grade console. And as competitors came out with better quality equipment, sure, for a little bit more money, it kind of ruined Nintendo in my eyes and showed that you can produce a more powerful console. But hey, that's just me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do you think Nintendo should do different? What are you excited about for the Switch 2? And with that being said, see y'all next time. Peace.